for any job you're considering, it's important to understand what the compensation looks like and the career paths. How much money you're going to make and where can you head in this career. So for the SDR job, it is much like any sales job. It's going to be very goal-oriented. Salespeople will typically have a sales quota that they need to hit. And that quota, essentially, you can think of that as like a weekly, monthly, or even annual target that you need to hit. So for this SDR role in particular, remember the SDR job is primarily built to, your primary goal there is just to set up qualified meetings for account executives. So you want to pass X number of qualified leads per month over to account executives. Typically, that number will fall anywhere between 10 and 30 leads per month, depending on what you're selling. So your SDR quota might look something like this. It might look like, all right, Sally, you need to pass over 12 qualified meetings per month to account executive. Now, you might hear these leads, these target numbers abbreviated as SQLs, sales qualified leads. So you need to pass over 12 SQLs a month or 30 SQLs a month. And it's hard to say if 12 or 30 is the appropriate number for any given company. It's always going to depend on the company you're talking to. So when you're interviewing for a role, you might hear one company telling you that you need to pass 12 SQLs a month over. And another company might say 30 SQLs a month. And it doesn't necessarily mean that 30 is harder than 12, because maybe the product or service that company's selling, it's easier to get those SQLs. So a good question you might ask is, how much of the team today is hitting their SQL number or hitting their quota on a monthly basis, so that you can understand, is that 12 really hard to hit, or is 30 really easy to hit? That's what you'd want to ask there. How much of that team is hitting their monthly quotas today? Now, when we think about how much money an SDR is making, an entry-level SDR, you're going to think about it with this little equation here. On-target earnings is what they'll typically phrase it as, and that's salary plus commission. All sales roles, for the most part, are salary plus commission, meaning you have some base salary that you're getting every month, no matter what, right? That's just for doing your base job. And then if or as you're hitting your quota, your monthly quota, you're going to get commission on top of that. So a typical OTE might break down into 75% salary, 25% commission in that role, meaning that 75% of your entire compensation comes as a salary, and then 25% of it comes from commission. So for an entry-level SDR, meaning it's your first year SDR, typically you're looking at anywhere from like $65,000 to $80,000 on target earnings. Now, if 75% of that 65 is salary, that means your salary might be somewhere in like the 45 to 50 range. And then the other 25% comes from commission to get that 65 number. Or let's say that your on-target earnings are 80,000, 75% of that, meaning around, let's say 60,000 or so, might be a salary. And then the other 20,000 comes from commission that you hit on a monthly or annual basis there. So that's the typical breakdown for an SDR role. It's going to vary from company to company, from industry to industry, but that should give you a rough idea of how much you can make there and what that breaks down to. Now, as we look at career paths, really from an SDR position, from a sales position, there's so many ways you can go. You can go into marketing, customer success, product management. I mean, there's so many routes you can take, but when we think about the sales route here, that's what we're going to dive into. So let's say you start as an SDR. Typically, you're being the SDR role from anywhere from 12 to 24 months, so a year to 2 years. And then if you wanted to progress in the sales track, you'd go into an account executive role where you are selling and closing deals. In an account executive role, you're typically making anywhere from, call it, 80,000 to 150,000 in your first year or two. And then there's definitely account executives out there that are making 200,000, 300,000, 400,000. The top reps that have been in the industry for 10 years, they might be making $1 million a year selling software. So definitely a lucrative position as account executive. Past that, you'd move into some sort of management track. So you could be managing the SDR team, right? Maybe the company you work for has 30 SDRs across the country or 100 SDRs across the world. You could be a regional, You could be a national or even global SDR manager, helping to lead the team that's sourcing new deals for account executives. You could also go into a sales management position where you're leading the account executives. Same thing, a regional account executive manager, national, even global account executive leader there. Past that, you move into more senior management roles like a VP of sales or even executive leadership roles like a CRO, CEO type of role later in your career, right? Think, anywhere from 7 to 15 years later in your career. But really, the opportunities are endless just by starting as an SDR. It's an amazing place to start your career. It's where myself and many of my friends have started off, and all of them have gone on to do great things in sales and outside of sales.